All right, let's get into what is maybe the most important part of any clinical study, coming up with a research question. We're going to take a look at the big ideas from Chapter 2 of Designing Clinical Research to really understand how a great, powerful question comes to life.
Every big discovery, every medical breakthrough we've ever had, it all started with a simple question. But what is it that really transforms a general curiosity into a question you can actually build a study around? What gives it that power?
And that really gets to the heart of it. This whole process, it's not about just taking off boxes on a checklist. It's a whole way of thinking. It's a kind of discipline that needs both creativity and, well, a whole lot of rigor. This quote from the book just nails it. A research question isn't just something you're interested in. No, it's a very specific uncertainty, a gap in our knowledge that an investigator is determined to resolve.
So, where do these sparks of inquiry even come from? Well, as we're about to see, they can pop up from all sorts of places in a researcher's day-to-day life.
A lot of the time, it starts right there with a patient. A researcher might see a treatment that isn't working the way it's supposed to, or they notice a strange pattern. That real-world clinical experience, that's often where the seed of a brand new question is planted.
Another idea that comes up is how much innovation drives this. You get a new piece of tech, a new way to measure something, and suddenly these old questions that were impossible to answer are now totally on the table. It just opens the floodgates for new research.
Or, sometimes it comes from the simple act of teaching. You're trying to explain something, and you suddenly realize, wow, the evidence for this so-called standard practice is actually pretty thin. And boom, a whole new line of inquiry just opens up.
But, okay, having that spark, that aha moment, that's not enough. That raw idea has to be shaped. It has to be pressure tested before it can ever become a real study.
So you've got to ask yourself, really practically, can we actually pull this off? A research question is only as good as its feasibility. Do we have the money, the right people, and enough participants to see this thing through to the end? And beyond just doing it, you have to ask the so what question. Will the answer we find actually matter? Is it going to change how doctors practice or influence policy or really push our understanding forward in a meaningful way? Then, of course, there's the question of novelty. A good study doesn't just rehash what we already know. It has to add something to the conversation. Maybe it confirms something that was uncertain, or it refutes a belief people have held for a long time. It's got to bring something new to the table. And under all of this, running through every decision, is the ethical piece. Is this a responsible thing to do? The study has to have acceptable risks for the people in it, and a really important modern point the book makes is asking whether this research will help promote health equity instead of just making existing disparities even worse. Okay, this example really shows the whole transformation in action. On the left, you've got this huge important topic, social media's effect on teen mental health. It's a massive area of interest, but it's not an inquiry, right? You can't just go out and measure effect, but look at the right. Now that is a researchable question. It zeroes in on one specific action, a 30-day fast. It has a specific outcome, anxiety scores, and a very specific group, 15 to 17-year-olds. See how it turns a big worry into a specific answerable uncertainty? So why do we spend all this time on a single sentence? Why is it so incredibly critical? Well, it turns out that one little question serves as the blueprint for absolutely everything that follows. Because it really is the architectural blueprint for the whole project. Every single decision you make from here on out, who you're going to recruit, what tools you'll use to measure things, how you're going to analyze the data, all of it flows directly from that one carefully crafted question. And what that means is that the stakes at this stage are just incredibly high. A vague question, a flawed question, that's not a small problem you can fix later. It's a fundamental flaw in the entire structure. The whole thing is being built on a shaky foundation. So, as we start to weave all these ideas together, you can see that coming up with a research question is this incredible balancing act. It's this really dynamic process. It's a mindset that's constantly balancing that creative spark with down-to-earth pragmatism. You're merging that ambition to discover something new with a really deep sense of responsibility to do it the right way. And that foundational thinking, that's what gets a researcher ready for all the technical stuff that comes later. Nailing this conceptual stage is what makes everything else, all the detailed parts of designing a study, possible and, actually meaningful. When you really get down to it, the quality of a scientific answer is decided long, long before a single piece of data is collected. It's all shaped right from the very beginning by the quality of the uncertainty we choose to explore.